Hello everybody, here in his head here, and I'm back once again to deliver with you guys a new building video. I'm really enjoying doing these, and I hope you guys enjoy watching them. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So in this particular build, I decided to go down towards the southern end of the Sten Desert, specifically just below the Great Fortress to the right of New Kralia. There's a nice big open area right there. I was kind of going for a compact castle vibe in this one, just because that tends to be what I am most known for. That's what a lot of people tend to notice in my tips and trick videos are my compact castles. So per usual, first thing I do, I drop the gate, because that kind of acts as the focal point for all of my builds. So I didn't want to build the complete wall because, again, I'm going for a compact castle, and that means I'm using the buildings themselves as the wall for the majority of the build, with maybe one or two walls in between. You will notice I'm using a storm wall from the storm wall mod. It's on the Steam Workshop. I just found it today, fell in love with it, and it actually gave me the inspiration for this build. So I started to kind of put some of the walls down, and then, partway through, I remembered that I was doing a compact castle because I got a little bit ahead of myself. So I deleted the walls and got that straight V shape. Not that I have a wall that you can walk on in this, but just because it tends to look better. And when I start dropping these towers, the tops of these towers will have a better angle, to shoot and aim actually at the front gate if we were being attacked. So I wanted to make sure that I still had that V shape, even if you can't get onto the towers, to kind of act as a funnel. So I dropped the two towers there, and I actually would end up replacing one of them, because I remembered that I'm mostly doing this as a Shek build, and so I wanted the building to be a little bit more dilapidated, not completely destroyed, but more run down. The Shek don't really take care of their buildings too much. A lot of the stuff, when it starts to fall apart, it just starts to fall apart. They're literally living in a desert that is essentially a junkyard. If you have the texture resolutions high enough, you can tell that the ground is actually just like pieces of rebar and junk in a lot of spots. So I ended up going with the broken watchtower. And I thought that kind of added a little bit more variation. Now, I will say throughout this build, something that I end up doing quite a bit, and you'll see it in a minute, is I start out very symmetrical, and then I end up making it asymmetrical, and that's because I'm insane, and I tend to lean towards symmetry. But in some builds like this one, as it went on, I started to realize that symmetry was not going to be something I could do consistently. So I really love these longhouses, especially on compact castles. They make such a good, easy shape for sidewalls, for building gates between. If you put them close enough together, you can actually put a gate between the two buildings themselves, but two of them side by side like that. And then they're just really, really good for this particular type of build. So I put either one on either side of those, drop the station house because the centerpiece is always going to be the station house, but I wanted to raise it up as high as possible. And that was just because, it is the main building in the encampment, so I thought that it should be like up nice and high, just so you have some differences in elevation for each of the buildings, right? If they're all the same size, or if they're all like the same level, it kind of makes it look lazy and not as intricate and detailed, and it just doesn't look as good aesthetically. So I dropped another tower in the corner because I'm a big fan of that medieval gimmick that there's going to be a tower on every corner. I say gimmick, but it's a functional design piece. So I dropped those two towers, and then from here there was actually a brief moment where I was trying to figure out what to kind of add to it, right? I kind of sealed it in, and that was pretty much it. But we're only 4 minutes into the video, and it's almost a 40-minute video, so as you can probably tell, there's a significant amount more. So I started kind of sifting through, and that's something that's going to happen a lot in this particular video. Is there's a lot of me going through the menu and just looking around for stuff. So I was looking around with different platforms, and then as I kept going, I kind of started to look and see if maybe I should drop another building somewhere. And I wanted to use one of the storm houses because this is a storm fortress, and I'm using all of those kind of like concrete desert-looking buildings. But it's called a storm fortress, so I need to have at least one storm house. So I continued to look around for another minute, and that's when I decided that this watchtower actually it needed to go. I figured I'd get rid of one watchtower and then I'd expand back. And it actually ended up working out for two reasons. One, I wanted to incorporate that storm building, but also I needed a place to incorporate a farm of some kind. Not a large one, but I did need a farm, and I had all this big open space in the back there. And so it made sense that I was going to work our way back there. So I dropped my storm house, which again lends to the name. Figured I'd drop another watchtower to kind of replace the other one, and then I would actually end up adding walls between the two of them to kind of lock everything in. And then later on, I would end up adjusting this a bit more, and that's a lot of what these compact castle builds in particular are. It's a lot of trial and error. You test something out, you like the way that it looks, and then halfway down the road you realize there's a better idea. So here I wanted to use the full segment walls. I really hate using those individual segments, so I try to get the full segments, and then I back it into place using the Shift F12 menu. So once that's in place, I kind of just make a couple of those small alterations, and then I shift the tower over so that way it meets, and there's none of that, like, there's a little bit of clipping, sure, but it gets rid of that like gap where you can see things, so it looks like it's all put together and a solid piece. So I do the same thing over here. I kind of try to start as close to the building as possible, get those solid segments, and then I build over. This one, thankfully, I didn't have to do much adjusting other than like a small rotation on the wall, but no big deal there. So after I dropped that wall, I kind of decided to get into some more of the nitty-gritty stuff. So I started work on the farming aspect of it. Cactus, pretty much the only thing that's going to grow here. Again, I do a lot of micro adjustments here and kind of playing with design layouts and trying to figure out where things are going to go. But I do a lot of micro shifting with the Shift F12 menu just because I'm a lunatic and everything needs to be super straight in the exact way that I want it. So I play around with a couple spots. I don't mind if it's a little off kilt in this one, just because it is the Shek. I feel like they're a more work with what they have kind of people. I mean, again, they're literally living in a junkyard, so they kind of have to be, a little bit more flexible with what they're doing. So I play around with quite a few different locations and spots for the farm, but I end up coming up with this one. This particular section with the fences, this is on double speed because it was like an hour and 20 minutes. But this particular bit here where I'm messing with the fences was it was beyond annoying because I could not get them to be at the same level without like having an area where you could like see underneath the fence and like it wasn't connected to the ground. So I had to lower that one. But then I lowered it too far, and it looked weird because that one right there is just in the perfect spot. So I just kept having this same issue. It took way too long to get these lined up, but eventually I did. I got them placed. I dropped a little well. I kind of wanted to put it in the center. I kind of touched base on a few different spots to see if maybe it would look better there, but I ended up settling for the center. I just felt like it made more sense. Dropped a water tower to the left of that storm building there. Rotate it out so the ladder's facing outward because I care about stuff like that. Drop the water tower to store the water from the well. There's not going to be a lot of it, but we're going to want to keep what we have. And then we got those all solidified and ready to go. And then I also wanted to drop a few bits of storage for the cactuses themselves. I got this really cool mod earlier today that makes the storage containers look look better. Like the cactus one you'll see in a second is actually filled with visible cacti. It's not just a barrel. You can tell what's supposed to go in there, and so all the food containers are like that. You can visibly see it. So at a couple, I like to rotate as I'm placing, just so they don't all look like they're just static copies of it. They kind of have their own look. They look like maybe they've just been placed there erroneously. So again, I kind of just go through and I was looking for dead trees in this particular one, just to kind of add a little bit of ambiance or shake up the vibe a bit. But I wasn't really able to find anything that I liked, but I did sift around for a bit. And again, this is largely what I do when I'm going through these compact castles. I'm really just kind of digging through the menu looking for things that I can do. There's no real particular order or rhyme or reason for what I'm doing. So here I switched to the turrets. I figured I'd start dropping some defense on the buildings. I dropped harpoon turrets with lights, which I would then go back in a couple of minutes and change because I didn't like the idea of them having lights. I just wanted the harpoon turrets. I didn't have any particular reason I didn't want them to have the lights. It just didn't feel right for a compact Shek outpost like this. Like maybe at AdMag, but not here. This seemed like it was more of a defensive position, maybe like a smaller fortress, or like a major fortress, but like not smaller than a city. You know, they're not going to have maybe as advanced tech compared to, you know, like one of the other cities, one of the other factions, I mean. So kind of looking through a couple more buildings, figuring out maybe what I want to do next. I kind of created this larger space now, so I'm trying to fill it in so that way it's not just, hey, I dropped these building shells and we're done. You know, I figured I'd add a little bit more decoration than I did in my last video. So digging through some of those outside pieces there. These tents, I really like them. On occasion you can kind of just drop them around and it gives the place a little bit more of a lived-in feel. Adds a couple, just some placeholders, and then I thought about using the small one there actually as almost like an awning in the front of the doors, and it worked out really well. They fit like perfectly for it, which is really cool, and they look really good. And the doors still work, which I test here in a little while, but the doors do work with the awning in front of it, so no big deal. It just kind of adds a little bit more flair to the buildings, makes them look nicer. But I really like, especially with Shek building, when you have like campfires and outdoor seating, you know, furniture and seating and stuff like that, because it really livens the place up when the NPCs are sandboxing. So drop a couple lights around the base. I need some lighting on the farms, some by the gate, and those kind of replace the harpoon turrets with the lights, so they're more like static lights. And I think later on I end up actually even getting rid of those as well, and just doing torches. So I need to get a little bit of power going in the place, but I wanted to find a good spot to place it. So originally my thought was maybe up on this hill, and I could kind of use the natural terrain to with that back tail there that's supposed to be keeping it in place. I figured I could use terrain to kind of make it look like that back tail is actually like a support beam, and it's keeping it straight up even though it's on that incline. And so I placed a couple here, and I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated it. It just looked lazy, and it didn't look good. So I then got the idea to kind of drop it on top of this tower. And my thought was that like the tower collapsed, and you know it's already open, so why not drop this thing up there? It's still fully functional, and it kind of gives it the same height as the other towers, but it's still a broken one, so it adds that variation that I want. I thought about maybe placing another one somewhere else, but to be honest, the 100 power output from that one generator should be enough for most of what I'm doing in this. I think the turrets only take up a total of like 30 by the end of this anyway. So next I kind of wanted to focus on resources, and so I was digging around for a minute trying to find maybe an alternative for the quarry, because I didn't have anywhere that I could put the stone mine in the base, and I couldn't think of anywhere I wanted to go. And then I realized I had this big open space right here in the back, and so I didn't want them to have to run all the way around. And that's when it occurred to me that this back little segment there, that first wall that I placed, I can actually get rid of that and then replace that with another, almost like with a rear gate, almost, but with a rear gate. So I went back down, went to the walls, grabbed the gate, and dropped that in the back. So now I have a rear entrance to where the mining happens. And that's what I meant earlier when I said, you know, we go through and I change things constantly. So I drop that down, and then you'll notice there's actually these little slits on either side where it doesn't fully connect to either building. And again, because I'm insane, that is unacceptable. I can't do that. So I take it, I drop it down a little bit, and I actually move it all the way over, and then I move the whole tower as well, because Those gaps are not acceptable. I can't stand them. So I dropped down my stone resource, and then I set up I try to look for a second one. That doesn't work because the percentages are too low to justify me putting it down. It would just slow everything down anyway. So I dropped the stone processor. I kind of tried to figure out for a minute where I wanted to put it. Sometimes when you make everything flush against the wall, it tends to look a little bit stale, because you still have that big open space and all you've really done is cluttered the walls. But because of the situation back here, I ended up doing that anyway and just putting it right up against the wall. And then on either side, I put one side storage for the stone and then one side storage for the building materials from the stone processor. So and that kind of was the back area. I didn't feel like I needed to do too much back there because this is just like the outside. This is where the workers go and mine the stone to keep the fortress up and running. The Shek are a hardy people. They go through a lot of building materials. They go through a lot of equipment and stuff in general. So they need to have a consistent supply of all this stuff. So go back into the center, and I kind of wanted to decorate the interior a bit. Not the interior, the interior of the wall, but like that center area. When you first come in, there's quite a bit going on there. And so I wanted to kind of to play around with that for a little bit, and then I noticed these caravan guards were attacking the wall. A lot of this is because I did not place down like a building, like build a building prior to me using the Shift F12 menu. So a lot of this area, it would not stay under my control when I placed down the town marker and then reloaded, because I don't actually have an outpost there. I only do when I place down the marker, but if you don't place a building before you start using the Shift F12, then your ownership of the land doesn't persist when you reload. It's a whole thing. So something to note before you ever, do a build like this. If you want it to be a build that you can play in consistently, you need to build like a small shack. I went over this in one of my tips and trick videos too, but you need to build a small shack, and then you can start building in the Shift F12, and everything will be persistent so long as you place down the town thing, save and reload, the town placement marker, save and reload. And you can delete the shack after you do that. You just need something to like establish that initial outpost. So I went back to decorating after my my poor guy got beat up by those caravan guards. He does his best, but I don't think he ends up getting through them. I'm pretty sure actually he ends up getting knocked out here in a couple of minutes. So just again, I'm going through. I'm looking for things to place to kind of fill some of these spaces, and the whole time I'm also wondering like what would they need? Not only what they need, but what would the Shek reasonably use? I'm not going to set up when I'm building a base that's thematic like this. I'm not going to set up this really really big nice kitchen in one of the buildings, because in large Shek military they don't care about that stuff. What they will do is they'll have these little tents outside with these campfires that are surrounded with, boxes for them to sit on. And they're all going to sit out by the fire and tell war stories and stuff like that. And so I kind of wanted to capitalize on that. So I used some of these, little shelters to make these kind of like awnings and these, little gazebo type setups that they could just hang out under, escape from some of the sandstorms or the dust storms. And some of them may even sleep out there, if they're lower ranking, or if they're not, if they're just coming in to stay from another area while they're out on patrol. Maybe they send some of the regiment from the Great Fortress over here, and they're not actually staying in the fortress, in this particular fortress, but they're just stopping by to rest. Maybe they'll sleep on the campfires outside, cook some food. So I went around. I was trying to find the sitting crates, and they took me a really long time to see them, considering they're right in front of me on the menu. But I ended up finding them. So I placed a couple of those around the fire. So, when the NPCs are sandboxing, they will just run over there. If they have no other responsibilities, no other missions they're actively doing, they'll just sit over there. So, and I thought about maybe dropping a table, but I couldn't find one that could not be placed out, that could be placed outdoors, I mean. So, I found this weathercock here that I was entertained by, especially because they had one where there's a dead silk spider on the top of it. And I was like, well, that's pretty nifty, especially since we're towards the southern end of the Sten Desert. You know, they're constantly hunting the silk spiders because they're fighting the bugmaster down there. So I took it, got the silk spider one, and then I used my map to actually align it so it's actually pointing at north. So the weathercock that's in the main area is accurate to the actual cardinal directions in the area, which I just thought was funny because I feel neurotic doing it, but I thought it was funny, so I did it, you know. So I went around. This was around the time I started dropping some torches. The place was getting a little dark. There wasn't really much to keep the place bright. And at night when I was trying to build this stuff, it was just getting a little muted, you know. So I dropped torches, my standard 2, 1 on either side of pretty much every door in the place. And I try to place them consistently in the same way on the buildings, so that way it looks uniform. So, and then the 2 up front. But I like to drop 2 by every door if I can. Occasionally I'll make an exception depending on the circumstance, but 2 is usually where I do. And I also light up the farms because, you know, they work faster in the light, and also who wants to work the farm in the middle of the night in the dark? You know, that's not cool. So the Shek may be jerks, but you know, they're efficient. You know, they're efficient jerks. So drop a couple more torches. Same deal out here. I don't want the working to be difficult. They'll slow down. So I drop some torches around the quarry and around the processor as well. And then the place just lights right up, and suddenly it feels like it comes alive. You know, placing lights is such a small thing, but when you drop those torches, all of a sudden the place just it literally lights up, but it also figuratively lights up. It looks much more put together and like lively as soon as you drop those lights, which I always think is really cool. How it just ties everything together. So I don't remember what I was thinking there, why I kept going back to the L house, but whatever it was, I quickly realized wasn't going to happen. So here I actually drop another, you know, a little tent over the cactus barrels. No particular reason. I just kind of wanted to add some more aesthetics to the base. I thought the idea of like covering those up to a degree made sense, just to keep like the dust out of the supply. I realized I forgot to drop a couple of torches, so I dropped those right there to light up that other tower. And you know, I was really happy with how this place was coming along. It was starting to look really good. So here I realized I needed a little bit more defense on the back, and because that's always important, especially because my miners are back there, right? So ideally I would assign the miners 1 or 2 guards, probably 1 guard per miner, just to watch them while they were mining and keep them safe from any exterior threats. But you also want to make sure that you're covering the rear in case of invaders. Maybe they try to flank us from the back. We want to make sure we have some stuff back there. So here I have this interesting idea, and this I was really upset about this because you'll see that I end up playing with this for quite a while trying to get this to work. I wanted to connect these 2 buildings, and I got so close, but this was unfortunately one of those times where no matter how much I fiddled with it, I just don't think I was going to be able to make it happen just because of the layout that I had picked. So I really wanted to connect those 2 buildings with an arch bridge, and my idea was maybe a 3rd one over here, but the decline would have been way too much and it would have looked ridiculous. So I ended up opting, I tried a few different buildings, but I ended up just opting for that one. And it didn't serve any particularly crazy purpose. I just thought it would look nice, and it would be unique to be able to walk from there to the top of that building. For no other reason than I just thought it would look cool, and it would functionally be a really interesting concept. And you're going to see I put a lot of effort into this. I was outfitting my guy here to on the off chance that he got attacked again, but he ended up thankfully not getting attacked again. But so I tried on this bridge. I tried really hard on it. You're going to see I come up here and I test it, and I can always get so close. But something about the ridge of that building, and this isn't the first time, it's specifically with the longhouse. Something about the border of the longhouse prevents you from doing anything like this. And I think, in all honesty, it's because of that larger portion at the end of the longhouse. So it is my understanding that or it's my belief anyway, that because of that larger section on the end of the longhouse, there's actually a wall that is higher than the ridge on the lower portion. And because of that, no matter how hard I try, I will never be able to get a bridge to work on this, because this is not the first time I've tried to do something similar to this, and it's always that building that gives me the headache. So, like I said, you're going to see me go through and test this a good handful of times, and I just can't get it. And it made me so mad because it was such a cool idea to me. It would have been super, super nice, but I can always get right about there, and I can't get over that ridge. And I even tried flipping it. I tried, tweaking it. I tried moving the entire building to see if maybe I could give myself a little bit more wiggle room, a little bit more leeway. And no such dice, no such luck. No such dice, because that makes sense. No such luck. And then when I flip the, at a certain point too, I actually go over to the longhouse and try getting it from there and starting on that end and maybe going up to see if it may be easier. Like it may be a one-way thing. But still nothing, unfortunately. So, you can see here I try again, and I just keep trying. And that's what a lot of this is. It's trial and error. And there's going to be certain pieces when you're building with this where you're trying to do something a little bit more, not crazy, but, like a little bit more unique or crackpot like this. And it's just not going to work. Or it does work, but it may take you an hour of testing. And it is what it is. It's kind of the amount of time you're willing to put into it. So here you can see, like I said, I flipped it. And I was like, maybe if I flip it over, maybe it's just that side doesn't want to work with this building. Maybe if I flip it, I can get a better angle and we can work from there. Because, I've had buildings connected to the station house before that work just fine. I've done in some of my other compact castle builds. I'll have a tower where the stairs come right off the end of that station house with no issue, but like I said, it's something about the longhouse that it just does not like when you try to do stuff like this. So constant saving and reloading as I do, because it adds permanence, it fixes the nav mesh. So and right here, this was about the time I gave up. I realized that even from the longhouse side, I couldn't get up there, and so I moved on from it. So it was a cool idea, but I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to do it. So, is what it is. So yeah, now here I'm just looking for more decorations. A couple things to do. I end up, looking for some foods. I thought maybe about putting some food stores down there, but then I was like, no, that's a little bit ridiculous. Just because this is a massive fortress, they're not just going to put their food out in the open. They are going to have that in storage. So, I ended up putting down a couple animal feeders because I would imagine they would try to tame some bone dogs, and they'd also have maybe some garu for transporting resources between areas. I made a little training section over by where the guards' quarters would be in that tower there. And so my thought was that, they'd have the guards lined up outside training on this, I think this is the southern wall, or one of the southern walls. And then I dropped a little turret trainer there too, because they're not always going to be training melee. They do have people on the turrets. So I dropped one turret trainer, and that's aiming at the wall. I thought about dropping an assassination dummy, but not only could I not find a spot that I felt made sense for assassination training, but the Shek don't really believe in assassinations because they're an honorable, militaristic people. They are, very straightforward in battle. So assassination training didn't make any sense, so I ended up just moving on from it. So then here I was kind of looking through the miscellaneous tab for some maybe decorative stuff, and I saw the market stalls, and I was like, oh shit, let's add some of those. So I kind of added those on either side. That way, in the event that people did come and they were trading, maybe merchants would stop by, or the hivers and their caravans when they come to sell you goods. I say goods in quotations because it's usually crap that's been marked up to an extreme. But when the hivers come to sell you stuff, and also it just adds some like that lived-in feel. This is an outpost. People live here. They don't just come here for work. There's a good chance these soldiers are here for days, weeks, months on end. And so there's going to be stuff around. There's going to be, shelves full of stuff and crap. And, this was just me looking at Stobe's corpse because I saw the little chain thingies there and the rubble that's actually connected to the, outline of him. And I was like, oh, shit, I wonder what those are. But I found the animal cages. And I was like, well, I dropped the animal feeders. I'm going to probably need cages to put the animals, but I couldn't find anywhere that I thought would look good without being in the way. Like in that spot, it would be in the way of the stairs, and here it's already a narrow walkway. I don't want to put them there. And then I decided to put them here. And this stupid little tent gave me way more of a headache than I expected it to. So I couldn't get it to select where I could dismantle it. And that's not an F12 issue. That's literally just Kenshi being Kenshi. So I ended up taking it, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to move it out of my way and move it somewhere else and then put the cages right there. So I put it over here, and I couldn't find it. And then it was up in the air. So I move it back over to the storm house, and I shoved it into the storm house, and I couldn't select it because it was too far into the storm house. So as with anything that breaks when you're using the F12 menu, you save, you load, and it usually fixed the issue. And lo and behold, I saved, I load, and now it fixed the issue. So if you ever screw up or things aren't working properly, just save it and reload, and that usually will fix whatever you did. So I drop it over here just to kind of, again, add a little bit of flair, a little bit of flavor. Maybe it's a spot where they can take a smoke break or something. I have no idea. But drop the little tarp there. I got rid of this one just because I felt like at this point it was over cluttering. I don't want to over clutter with stuff. Everything should serve some kind of a purpose, even if it's a decorative purpose. But you don't want to just over clutter for the sake of over cluttering. So I go back to the animal cages and I drop 2 mediums and a large, so I kind of get those into place. And these are you can use them to get Garos, you can use them to get bone dogs. I briefly considered putting a cage for a beak thing, but there's not many, really a ton of beak things down here. So unless you go over to Vane, but I opted against it. So that was that. So I dropped the animal cages, and I started to dismantle some of those extra pieces there. I kept the fire pit. I'm pretty sure. I may have gotten rid of it. No, yeah, I kept the fire pit. I'm pretty sure. And then just because I did want them to have another place to sit and hang out and stuff, we just didn't have the tent over it. But it doesn't matter anyway because this place is generally arid and dry and pretty warm. So and again, this is just me going around looking to see what I can improve. What can I add here? What would make the place look better? What would make more sense? Just a lot of sifting. A couple more market stalls just to liven things up. Pretty sure I put one right there, and then I went through and I kind of double checked to make sure all of them were at the appropriate height, because I noticed this one seemed taller than the other ones, so I had to go through and you know, manually make sure that they were all at their max height. It's a good thing I did, because they were not. So we put them at their max height. Those all look nice and good. Drop a couple more lights in areas that I felt like could use them. You know, you don't want to be training in the dark. That's always upsetting. And then out here, I got the idea. This has no benefit on, no margin, like marketable benefit on defense. But I decided to actually put two. Oh yeah, I had to check and make sure that I was using harpoons or crossbows. I'm using harpoons. I decided to put 2 turrets out here, right? And so these would be the ones that are kind of standing guard. And my thought was that it's actually an uphill slope, right? And so because it's an uphill slope, from that position, anybody that's attacking, they have a pretty solid shot on them, even from that angle, because it's a flat or an inclined target, so they can aim pretty well right there. So drop 2 harpoon turrets there for them to use in the guards. And then I dropped the outpost thing right there. Don't worry about those outpost statues. I will go over that in a minute. Those are only there temporarily. I can tell you how to get rid of them if they are becoming a persistent problem and they won't go away. To get rid of those, you literally save, exit the game entirely, and then load back in. But that's it. That's the base. I hope you guys enjoy it, and you know, cue for the montage.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. Try to catch me howling at the moon.